I am Serapis, born out of the fires of cosmic chastening are those fruits of the soul whereby progress is made. Those of you who have long awaited the moment of your deliverance, hasten the day by your obedience to the sacred fire. And those precepts of universal loveliness which are to be found in the sacred fire as it is cognized by the advancing individual. Stop for a moment and think now of the fire with its frequencies, of the fire from the standpoint of the electronic essence of itself. Think of the multitude of communication networks in the world order, and then proceed to realize and recognize the many conduits of grace that are connected with heaven itself and with the chambers of the brotherhood in the great pyramid of cosmic reality. I come to you this day, then, mindful of the sacred fire, in its manifold ramifications, its determinations to produce the fruit of cosmic purity. Purity begins in mind and heart. Purity is maintained by the will and the attunement. Purity, however, may occasionally be breached by embodied individuals as they allow their gaze to function in levels of consciousness and awareness which are affinitized with the world's thoughts itself. Therefore, it is essential and important that all understand and recognize that the shedding of carnal-mindedness is the greatest step whereby individuals are able to fulfill those latent desires of both heart and soul, which long after the Christ consciousness in its unfailing deification of the individual. For whensoever individuals are vested with the Christ consciousness, they are given a direct connection with the living God, with the living perfection and presence of their being, with those cosmic strengths that are able to destroy all human weaknesses. Individuals for far too long have tarried upon the path and not recognized their needs to bring about by an act of valor those things which are the will of God in their life. It is not sufficient to merely wish, but rather to demand of life itself the power to overcome those conditions which you have deplored for so long in yourself. Many individuals that criticize other individuals are in reality criticizing themselves and too cowardly to be able to face it. I want you to understand then that glaring honesty of heart, as El Morya has put it, is extremely important. Not that you as individuals are scaling the stars by your own human virtues, but rather that by grace and power and love for the infinite plan, you are able to pass beyond the concepts of your finite life or your individual identities, and to recognize that there is a supreme identity which has for far too long been withheld from the grasp of mankind by their brittleness, their selfishness, and their purposeless drift upon the human sea. Being involved as they are in most cases completely with the meanderings of the human ego, they fail to see the divine ego of themselves, orphaned as it is, and thrust into a corner of relative unimportance. When I come to you this day, then, it is to make you aware of this blissful, photic fire, which blazes in all of its frequencies and affinities of the Godhead. The light and play of color and movement in the sacred fire is calculated to separate man from his dross. Man, then, created in the image of God, is a golden pool of melted liquid golden light. And when he understands that, he is able to recognize that the purification of selfhood from the realm of human duality combined with God perfection is needed and necessary. It is not enough just to recognize your problems. You ought also to do something about it. And when I see individuals studying for years and years, producing very little fruit, I am always reminded that one day they will find themselves in a lower position rather than a higher, in spite of all their study. For I want you to know that truly some of the first are last, and some of the last first, purely because of determination and that motivation of the will of God and the purity of God, which holds each man in the divine image, regardless of what particular and specific thought or thoughts they have allowed to occupy their mind. From time to time, the world itself, emanating the human spirit and the vibrations of human thought and feeling into the very atmosphere, polluting the planet thereby, comes to even the most valiant of individuals for redemption. Have you thought, for example, of your role in those redemptive factors of the planet? You ask for the second coming of Christ. Beloved hearts, are you doing anything to produce it? Is mankind doing anything to clear the way for it? Is mankind anxious to receive it? Or is mankind content to vegetate in some traditional, picturesque scene of human contentment? I want you to understand that contentment and the picturesque scene, or any other particular facet of life which you wish to dream up, are yours for the asking once you have first achieved that perfection goal which you seek. But so long as the world is in turmoil and decay, so long as the teaching of true cosmic peace and overcoming is actually so badly needed by the world, is it not just a bit foolish, do you not think, for mankind to continually seek only for that which we may call temporal peace, whereas the universe itself is engaged in a form of spiritual warfare in high places? The dark powers of the world that must, as they know, surrender their allness ultimately, are engaged in conflict with the powers of light. One, of course, is wholly entangled with the human ego, whereas the other is identified with the soul in its rise into that perfection, assuring each man of the fruit of the ascension in the light. But unless the light be recognized daily, unless the ascension be obtained in part daily, man cannot expect that suddenly, as a giant magnet appears overhead, he will be lifted out of whatever mortal socket of despair and despondency he has allowed himself to vegetate into the pure light of God. Nay, your victory is obtained each day in some portion. And then one day, as you have moved still closer to the divine magnet, you will automatically be exalted into the ritual of the ascension. I want you to understand that the serpentine coil at the base of the spine, the Kundalini fires, are only automated and commanded by the power of victory itself. In other words, it is almost a folly for individuals to exert their efforts to stir up those energies which will provide them with more energy, whereas they do not know how now even to govern that which they have already obtained. If then the energies which you call forth from the Godhead, together with the wisdom which you invoke, the power which you invoke, and the love which you have, are calculated to produce that perfection you seek, then well and good, for you will learn to mastery all fires of God. And there are differing fires with different vibrations and different vibrational actions, which can be used and directed by the power of the Spirit of life within you when the requirement of the hour demands it. For individuals to simply seek as a point of human experimentation, to play, as it were, with the holy fires of God, can very often prove disastrous. Hence, we warn you of this, and we tell you also that all of the fruits of heaven can be yours for the asking when that asking becomes a unified direction, a recognition of the divine intent from the beginning to give you the kingdom, and that determination which will not take no for an answer, particularly a human no. Do you see what I'm speaking about? I'm speaking about the chastening of God as an activity of producing that refined manifestation which is a Son of God, the burnished gold color of the pure fire itself, as you in your fiery bodies place in your vital awareness the full understanding of who and what you are. For who and what you are precludes what the world has said you are. It is the first and the last in manifestation. It is your beginning and your ending. It is the beginning of you and the finalizing of your victory. It is the ending of human struggle. It is the ending of human defeat. It is the ending of human life as mankind has synthetically created it, and the beginning or origin of your divine life, wherein all things are given to you. For eye hath not seen, as Paul has said, nor ear heard, nor entered into the heart of man, the things which God has prepared for them who love him, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Will you then envision that purpose as the central theme of your life, and watch how the forces of darkness, targeting in upon you because you have started then to begin your emancipation, will direct those arrows and slings of outrageous fortune against you. And it may seem at that moment as though, rather than progress, you have fallen backward. But, beloved hearts of light, it is the chastening and the discipline that will actually set you free. For what is the problem in orbital flight, beloved ones, if it is not inertia itself, which must be overcome by the propulsive force? Let men understand then that it is in direct relationship to their determination plus their relinquishment of the spirit of inertia and human concepts that propels them forward spiritually until they enter in to the orbit of the cosmic ascension in the light, in thought, in mind, and in heart. But, beloved ones, beware of allowing this thought to be obsessing in the sense that the very practical aspects of your karma are not viewed. Individuals should understand exactly what I mean, for I am attempting now to make it plain to you all. I am referring then to the fact that on this planetary body there are those who need and require your assistance and the assistance of the masters of wisdom through you. Beloved ones, it may be true that there will come a time when they can dispense with that, of course. But while they require it and need it, be practical and do not think entirely of the fact that you selfishly would obtain an escape from this realm prior to that moment when your own divine will within you consents thereto. I have spoken to you thoughts that you might be able to utilize for your own emancipation in the light. But I want to commend you also for those right actions of the sacred law of the sacred fire that continue from day to day to guide you in your spiritual desires in that practical understanding of who and what you are as a part of the body of God upon this planetary body that will one day stand where we stand if you persist, and will certainly fall if you do not. I want you to understand then that you cannot operate from the standpoints that some human beings have allowed themselves to do. You cannot just take it for granted that because you are functioning in a certain spiritual search, that that search is automatically fulfilled within you. Nay, I tell you, you must search and find, and finding recognize your need to assist your fellow men in the development of that divine consciousness which you are developing yourself. Then, by the power of example, in every area of your life, you will produce that good fruit which will set the world literally on fire spiritually, to understand at last that the temporary finite goals that appear to the average individual as the span of their life are in no way relevant to the eternal love of God cast upon the screen of nature and upon the screen of soul reality or solar reality. You are children of the sun, but this is the sun also that exists behind the sun. And the power of the Son of God is being transferred to you daily as you are able to receive it. I, Serapis, seal you in the adjurity of the law. I adjure you to be aware of the law. I want you to recognize the law. I want you to feel that you can identify with it without kicking against the pricks of cosmic reason and cosmic justice. For truly, it is the chastening of the hand of God that actually exalts you. And as I gaze upon the planetary body and see those wondrous souls who are now in the process of almost clean escaping from error and the chastening which they have encountered, I am aware that the greatest process of burnishment was the chastening and the discipline, and so I count it the greatest of glory. Peace be upon you, but may it be a peace of determination and goodwill. Peace be upon you, for out of light comes forth the omnipresence, the omnipotence, and the omniscience of God. I thank you.